This meeting will be recorded and will be posted to YouTube and other social media platforms. By participating in this meeting, you understand that the recording could contain your video stream or your audio stream, including images of yourself or anyone in the room with you. If you choose to enable your video or audio device during the meeting, as well as anything or anyone else that may be in the background, could be recorded. The recording could include any opinions you contribute and anything you say about yourself. On occasion, chat within the meeting could also be captured in the meeting recording. Therefore, anyone attending the recorded meeting may have aspects of the personal data recorded if they actively participate or not.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the minutes?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, abstain. There you go. Now, there's two things on the agenda tonight that we're going to talk about. One is, since the public in their idiocy has decided that we don't need MCAS anymore, what are we going to do? As a committee member, hearing from the principals, here's where we did well. Here's where we did less well. Here's what we're going to do about it. I thought made tremendously good sense. The opposition took a different position. Some of them are good friends of mine. I'll let them know my opinion nevertheless. One is Schneider. If you've met him, talk to him, whatever. Just so you know, Luke is going to be on a panel at UMass. They're having the Policy Center is having a panel on civics. And they asked me to help out. And I said I would be glad to. And moreover, I have somebody who'll be terrific on that panel. As we listen to the things he's doing, I think it's very impressive. So he's had Jack Schneider is the head of the policy panel, and he was just voted one of the, I don't know, 50 or 100 top educational scholars in the country. Good guy, good guy, good guy. But last year was MCAS. And I didn't get a chance to say as much say as I would have liked to on that. I get cut off, if you could believe. So anyway, Luke's going to be doing that April 15. And I assume you will invite appropriate people from the district.
Of course.
And anybody on the school committee. Oh, Lee, I'm not going to be here next Thursday. I'm going to be out of the state. Would you mind making the report? Sure. Thank you.
Sure, I will make it. It's sure I don't mind. I don't want you to think I mind, and we'll make it when I say sure. I will happily.
You know, one of the nice things about these folks that went to Holy Cross is they're very careful in framing their statements in an appropriate and in a clear and an understandable way. And then if you put a law degree on top of that, my heavens.
Fortunately, I have a classmate of mine who's on the Supreme Court. That's what Holy Cross stands for. There you go.
Well,
I pulled up Luke's presentation on the screen.
okay. Well, we haven't quite got there yet.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, the two things we're going to talk about is and what we're going to do in place of MCAS. And Colleen and her crew have been brainstorming that. The best comment I've seen was about a month and a half ago, an editorial in the Globe. I think maybe somebody from Tufts wrote it. And they said, well, we're ready for MCAS 2. Sure. MCAS 2 makes great sense. We'll take the comments from the teachers' unions, from psychometricians, from school administrators, classroom teachers and all, package it all together and see what we can do to make it better. Makes great sense. I mean, this one is based on the Education Reform Act of 1993. That's, for goodness sakes, that's 32 years ago. Things do move on over a period of time. Although given my time frame, that's pretty short, but nevertheless. So Colleen's going to be talking to us about that, and she has Purnima and
Jason.
Jason to help with that. But Luke talked to me and said he had some ideas. He had some concerns. And the thing is, what drives me nuts about the teachers union, which I can't say in open things, even though I'm being recorded, is they don't come in and say, here's a problem, here's what we want to do about it. Here's a problem, here's an issue, here's something we're against, here's something we don't like. That is much more prevalent than we ought to do something different. So anyway, Luke was telling me he has some ideas. This social and emotional upheaval that we're seeing in our students. There's a course on that. And he went through some of the things that he sees could be done better. Is that a fair way to put it? Yeah. For one, he said, kids ought to be teaching that. The kids, the students, the children are the ones that best know what the emotional and social issues are and responses are and problems are and what can be done. So being Luke, he didn't just sit back on that. He's come up with a program that the students are teaching. And right now they're teaching the sophomores. You have about what, 5, 6, 7 instructors?
21, including myself.
21 instructors for the 119, is it sophomores? Okay, my mind hasn't totally left me. But he said the goal is to give the students confidence and discipline and a way of moving forward in a good, strong, appropriate fashion. He said the goals of this are you get up at 5:30. Yeah. You have 45 minutes of exercise. You read some. I do remember how much you said to read. You do something nice for somebody every day. And you always have your assignments passed in. Now, he is a very disciplined person, very successful in ROTC, which is a disciplined kind of program, but he's a great kid. He's very active in sports. You did exceed 1,000 yards running this year, didn't you? 1,060? Okay, well, I'm paying attention. So I think that's a tremendous achievement. That's sort of like hitting 300 in baseball or a pitcher winning 300 games or whatever. Anyway, that is the pinnacle for what a running back does in high school football games. And he's been talking to colleges. They talking about coming to their schools and blessing them, gracing them, play some football for them. I think with more emphasis on the latter than the former, but nevertheless. So this program is me and 30. Yeah, me and 30. It's 5 weeks, which is I assume where 30 days comes from. And it's the kids working with the kids, which I think is the best paradigm there can be. So we were talking about that last week, and I was so impressed with that, what he's doing, the approach, that I called Colleen and said, let's put this on the agenda. I think as school committee members, it behooves us to know what this is, to understand that it's going on, and that I think the goal is to continue on in the district and then to expand it wherever, whenever, however possible. So at this point, Luke, the floor is yours.
Awesome. think that's the best introduction I could have. So, yeah, as Mr. Allen said, the goal of the program overall is to give students confidence to chase and achieve their goals. So where that comes from is I've noticed in some of my classmates and in some of, underclassmen that they're not necessarily motivated, not necessarily disciplined. They, don't get their work in on time. They really aren't succeeding as much as they could be. And one case, my freshman year, which by the way, I'll talk about how it all really started. But
You read a book that she gave him.
yeah, and one thing that motivated me to really latch on to the idea that Ms. Mohan gave me was there was this kid who was a lineman on the football team. He kind of battled a little bit with some substance abuse, and he still could, I guess, probably go to the NFL. Like, this kid is just really, really strong, just naturally, never even went in the weight room. And I saw just endless potential in him, and so did the coaches. Everyone wanted him to be everything. And I saw that, and I really tried to help him. And to be honest, I didn't do as well as I hopefully am doing now with some kids. And I don't know why I felt like it was my responsibility, but I sort of did. And that has kind of drove me to build me and 30 out as much as it is, so that that next student with all that potential could hopefully do something with it, not just for the success that they could have, but just for their own confidence. And I think that's why it's amazing that SEL has been implemented into the school. SEL is social emotional learning, and that's another thing that's really came from, is that social emotional learning has all the great ideas, they're just not necessarily executing it perfectly. I think a lot of that is based off of the teachers giving the presentations, and it's not how they're giving them. It's just that it feels like another part of class. And as a student who has dealt with issues myself, I'm not saying, I've just been perfectly absolved. Sometimes you really hope to get something out of those lessons, and you just sort of don't, because the passion isn't there. And I think a lot of students, the reason why the Me and 30 is built by students, for students, is that I really think most students who have been successful, who are, qualified, I guess, to be able to preach about this, has kind of gone through it themselves. And I think that's one big thing, that not that teachers haven't, but that it feels a lot more real when someone did it only a year ago. And that's one big thing that I'll get into. So how this all really started was Ms. Mulan, when not superintendent, said, read this book, Hard 75, where you do these 8 hard things or something.
Crazy.
Like, it's a lot harder than this. And she wanted to implement it into the school, and asked around a couple of the administrators, and Miss Hicks said my name. I think that's the story. And then I kind of trialed it freshman year. Didn't quite go so well. We tried to do the entire school, and it was like bare bones compared to what this is now. And it had them picking their own challenges, but I think we've perfectly solidified the challenge now. And I'm very excited to get into it. So as I sort of just mentioned, motivation, discipline, commitment, and stewardship all across the board is down. This is not just Quabbin. This is not just 5 towns here. This is Massachusetts, New England, world. And these are the most important characteristic, as all of you guys know. Very successful careers, you need these. And stewardship is really, the first three make a lot of sense, right? Stewardship, I think, is really something that you guys can really hold on to. Mr. Allen, you had mentioned one of the pieces of advice you gave me was that you got to take care of your friends. And I also see that in just being part of the community. Something I think of that makes the act of kindness so great is that you don't need anything in return. It's not like you're doing that for yourself. It's not like you're doing it for some goal. It's like you're just doing it to do it. And I think that's just putting good energy out there and, hopefully getting some back, but that's not really what it's about, So this is how we're going to do it. And so we're going to bring up motivation, bring up discipline, bring up commitment, and bring up stewardship. So the reason why all of these are so important is that it all drives to confidence. So how we're gonna improve the confidence is.
Sorry.
No. Sorry.
One more?
There it is. All right. 5 challenges. This was an old slideshow that I kind of moved around. So first one is Mr. Allen already went over all these. Wake up 5:30. I'll just go into the reasons why I picked these. So wake up 5:30. It's early, absolutely. But we have to be at school at 7. So you're pretty much only stepping back about an hour, maybe if you're able to drive. And many of the sophomore students already wake up at 5:30 because they have the bus to catch. So it's one real big step. And if you're in ROTC, sometimes you're waking up at like 4 a.m. So it's not too hard for the students, but it really is a challenge for a lot of them, and that's what it's all about. You still have to challenge yourself. You still have to, feel the pain a little bit to be able to feel the confidence later on. Next, 45 minutes of exercise total. So where this comes from is those students who maybe don't play a sport or maybe enjoy reading more. This is their time to step outside of their comfort zone in that way. Now next, for me, someone who does do sports, reading 10 pages kind of an ask. It's like, you don't really want to really read, but it's something that you got to get outside your comfort zone with. And that's what it's all about. Next, one random act of kindness. I think I've talked about that enough, but if every student in every school is doing 1 act of kindness daily, it'd be like peace on earth, right? So, yeah. And then no past due assignments. So the reason why this is like marketable to schools or whatever is that not only are these mental health statistics really damaging the students themselves, but it has a direct impact on their ability to plan for their future and their ability to succeed in school. So that's what's hiking failure rates, is that this epidemic singularly is making them unable to really put their best foot forward. It's like if you were trying to run with a sprained ankle, it's just not going to work as well. And you need to be able to be clear, you need to be confident in what you're doing. And so as long as they're trying their assignments, it doesn't have to be hundreds, but if they're trying, they're just getting their assignments in each time. Over time, even if they think they're a weak student, it's going to get better and better. So here's my favorite part of it. So the one thing that SEL did get right was teaching. So that's the one thing. They're teaching a lot about not necessarily these exact concepts, but a lot about thinking and a lot about strategy. And that's all great. But the one thing is that they have to start getting implemented into these students' lives for it to actually stick. So that's why the hands-on approach with the challenges is so important. But that doesn't mean we're going to forget about weekly improvement lessons. So week 1 is about who do you want to be? Start defining your life. Start getting a goal. Have some sort of idea about what you want it to look like, not just kind of going through the days. And week 2 is I am. So how many of you use the tactic self-talk? This is just me. I'll tell you what that is in a second. So when you're not feeling confident, or maybe you have a big goal coming up, you have to start telling yourself, I am going to succeed. I am going to rush for a first down. I'm going to show up and be great at school committee or whatever, And that's a big part of week 2. It's kind of giving them that strategy of, I'm going to wake up at 5:30 a.m., set my alarm. I'm going to be nice to somebody today. That's the big difference. Week 3, your attitude determines the world around you. This is kind of just having a positive outlook. So we want to really teach them that as much as it is important to be nice to others and, build yourself up, if you're negative about the whole thing and it's like a challenge to you, you're not going to be able to succeed long term. Never mind anywhere else in life. You got to have a positive attitude. You got to be enjoying what you're doing. Week 4, discipline wins. So at this point in the challenge, it's been quite a while. And the challenges are probably starting to get a bit tiring. And they really have to dig deep and start being more disciplined about the, entire experience. And, that's when the motivation runs out, when the reason why you did it starts to not be as favorable as it once was, just because you don't want to wake up. We want to teach them that's how you know you're improving. Now, week 5, what improvement really is. So we want to show them not only did you improve if you did all 30 days, not only did you improve if you did 20 out of 30, if you did 4 out of 5 challenges half the days. If you told yourself that you were going to take this step, you improve. That's the biggest thing. Stepping outside your comfort zone, even if it was just for one day, you just wanting that, you improve. And that's a big thing that we're going to have to talk about next week that we kind of hinted at all along throughout these are completely planned out. We've been doing them this whole month. I'll get into that in a second, but that's something that I think is really going to resonate so that if we ever do this again at Quadrant, the second time around, the idea is that they'll really be more motivated and they'll feel more of it as an opportunity, not a challenge, So this is how we will measure success. In the beginning, at the assembly, we had all the students take an intro test. So what that looked like was just an 8-question Google form, and they selected 1 through 5. And essentially what it is it's rating their confidence. So that's the biggest thing that we see. Motivation is important, discipline, commitment, stewardship. Those are the 4 key characteristics that build up confidence. However, confidence is still the end goal. So we wanted to be able to assess that in the beginning. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to have them take this again. And then we'll see if Mean 30 works or not, I think it does. But all right, so we'll skip this. All right, so here it is. So this was the assembly. So that's me giving a speech. I had a motivational speaker lined up the last second. So I had to kind of improvise there a little bit. So I ended up giving the speech. This is kind of like partner. He works on, kind of the design end of things. And here's some of the Mean 30 student representatives in action. So here's them talking to their sophomores and, over here as well. And it was really a great day. We had some technical difficulties in the very beginning. So Miss DeMarais, I'm sure remembers. However, once we got rolling, it was great. And, some of the students, you could really see it in their eyes when I was giving the speech, it felt good for them to really be able to resonate with what I was saying. And we might have another slide of pictures. If not, we go. Okay.
Why don't you tell us who those kids are?
Okay. This is James Geary. This is Ruby Gatulis, Reagan LaCrade, Andy Warfield, Kalina Dyer, Finn Leander. I can tell you these kids too if you want, but those are sophomores. So yeah, those are student representatives, and we have 21 in total. Would you like me to tell you all?
Are they all seniors, Luke, or some?
No, so there is a couple juniors. So example here, Andy, he's a junior. Kalina and Finn, they're both juniors. So that's the thing too. We really try to dig deep into the best people possible to do this. And I understand that juniors and sophomores are a little close in grade. However, they're very mature for, being so close. And it's actually pretty astonishing to see the difference of where some people are at. And, I definitely think me and Quinn, James, he goes by Quinn also, kind of really looked at who is going to be the best for this. And not only that, who can use this next year? Who can use this to then also have an impact in the community later on, just as school in general? We didn't really look at it as a linear arrangement because neither student representatives, we've got one student representative, just for example, who really has stepped outside their comfort zone. And I mean, this girl would barely really talk. And I don't know, something about that just made me want to put her in that position. And she has just totally excelled. And it's you go through and she just totally talks now. And it's I think as beneficial as it is for the sophomores right now, it's just as beneficial for the student representatives. And another thing, so we had gone over each of the weeks. And so starting 7th, we had our first, or the 8th, we had the first weekly improvement session, which went great. And then 15th the second, the third, the fourth. And actually, we have not had our fourth yet because the snow day last week, we had to cancel it, the 2 hour delay, we had to cancel it, but. So we just pushed out 1 week, but overall, it's been going very well. We've got a couple testimonials so far. I'm gonna get some video testimonials, of actual sophomores, who experienced it. And, I got a lot of testimonials from the student representatives about how they think it was going on the Zoom last weekend. And they really think that they're improving. And that's the most important thing. Some of them aren't necessarily doing the challenges. Because we have this challenge tracker sheet in the flex blocks that they go up each day and we'll check off all the challenges if they did it or not. And not all of those are filled out, but that's fine. And the biggest thing is that they're really engaged in the weekly improvement sessions. And at the end of the day, we started at SEO, where there wasn't necessarily that same connection. And then now they're doing it hands-on. And there's this one girl, so I myself, I'm in Captain Brian's flex block. And there's this girl, her name's Ash. I don't know her last name, but I just like her improvement has just made the whole program for me because I just see it. You know, she's just totally flourishing, becoming a better person. All her challenges are checked off. You know, and that's not what it's all about. You know, I don't think it's 100% about the challenges, but I do really think that if you put yourself through discomfort for that long, you'll be confident coming out of it. And that's one thing that I think SEL misses and that Me 30 picks up. And that you have to actually go through and do what you're learning about. So that's just about it. If you guys have any questions, that'd be awesome. I'd love to answer those.
Any members?
A couple comments, not really questions. So I think it's great, kind of a student-led, for lack of a better term, situation. And the reason I think that is because you can comment on this too, but I did the DC trip for 10 or 11 years and they were all 8th graders. And, you know, everybody had, you know, you all had 8 kids, you were on the bus, so a number of teachers and chaperones. But the thing was, the kids really did a lot on their own. And not being a teacher, I was able to observe both the teachers and the kids. And some of these kids just, I mean, there were kids that really just, they relied upon each other to do stuff. And some were kind of natural leaders, you would see that, or others sort of put the mantle of leadership on that group. But it was to me almost more kid driven. And towards the last day of the trip was seemingly the last day, you're driving back and I'm listening to teachers' comments. And every year there was never an exception. Every year the teacher, they would talk about at least, hey, I thought, you know, Jane like never would talk to anybody in this. I can't believe what she is like the 4th day. She's being social. She's doing this. And they would talk about a number of different kids. And it was like nothing the teachers did. I think it was the interaction with other students without parental observation, with some teacher observation, but still the kids were left on their own, not left on their own, but allowed to do their own thing for a number of the things that we did, a number of the places we went to. And I think a lot of that was just student-driven, student interaction on a lesser scale, you know, nothing like that. But if you see this with 8th graders, then I think it's a great idea to do that in a high school. Hopefully, and I think from what I've heard you say and seen with a quick perusal in there, you know, I hope there is the dynamic that sort of says failure is acceptable. I mean, whatever you're going through, whether you say like some take challenges, you know, some take them more seriously, others like, well, I'm not going to do any challenges. That's not a failure. And I think everybody that partakes in this needs to know that. There may be 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. There may be 1 step forward and 2 steps backward. But the same thing is the encouragement needs to be there and it needs to be from fellow students. And I think that will be a helpful thing. My question, I guess, is after you sort of run this, let's say, how do you what's your thought for keeping it going? In other words, I'm not saying once again, run the same thing again, but if one of your buddies has gone through this, And it might be something where if you hang out with somebody, you can almost keep them motivated. You could talk to, because you've got something that you've done commonly together. So you might go forward a month or 2 months from now and say, hey, remember we did blah, blah, blah. But there may not be other kids that, that have that or that in their situation. Is there a way, or have you all brainstormed somehow to say, okay, how do we kind of keep in touch a month down the road, a semester down the road, a year down the road? If in fact that's even possible, I don't know if it is.
Right, so the way that it's playing right now, so let's say Quabbin partakes in Me and 30 next year. So October to November, Me and 30 would run. And then December, January, there'd be this big project. So it'd be this big community-based project that the student leaders lead with their students. So that's where more stewardship comes in. It'd be some sort of community project where the student leaders, in order to get it on their resume, whatever, that'd be their motivation for them to push this to happen. And those students, they would have opportunities to step up and kind of practice what they've been learning fully, though. Not so much just in the classroom or doing their 5 challenges, but really out in the public. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about that also, because I hadn't really, to be honest, developed how that would work. However, after that challenge, the big community project, whatever that would be, then in February to March, I think it'd be great if they would run again. So I think that's how it would work. Originally, we hadn't had the challenge in there at all, the middle part. So this is how it originally was going to work: October, November, and then January, February. But now, putting in this last piece, which we came up last week with, to be honest, that probably extend that out a month. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Did you have a question or?
No, I was just thinking, I know some students have challenges with getting community service, and that's a great way to get them
Yes.
involved, and wouldn't that be wouldn't that be acceptable, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of my friends actually,
So kids that may not want to participate may have no other options really, and it might be an easy way for them to get some of those hours in.
Absolutely.
Right now, this is focused on sophomores.
Yes.
Yes. Any thoughts about moving it down to the ninth graders, or
So-
is there a reason why you picked the 10th graders?
So right now, this is just like a case study, like a trial run, trying to build this step by step upward. So let's get it right with a small pool, then move it up, So originally, it was going to be the 9th graders, but they all have this program called Link Crew. So the sophomores are kind of left hanging. So it's like you're not quite an upperclassman, you don't have it all figured out yet. Me, Miss Burkle, and Mrs. Sorba figured that the sophomore grade would be perfect. And that was something that I loved, to be honest. I think that this was the perfect grade. It's all worked out amazing. And eventually, even if we were to run it next year, the goal is the entire high school. And but then you need to scale up the student representatives. So that's a big challenge. I love right now we have a 1 to 5. So for every 1 student in the sophomore class, or every 5 students in the sophomore class, there's 1 student representative. I'd love to be able to keep that. However, that's hard. And let's say a really large school like Wachusett or something, like 4,000 kids, then you need whatever it is, like 800 student representatives. That's tough. So it's like almost the entire senior class. So that's another thing that needs to get wrinkled out. But
Do the student representatives deal with the same cohort of kids? Or that do they have a chance to develop a relationship with a group?
absolutely. Yep. So they go to the exact same set of kids each week.
Okay.
Yeah. So luckily Quabbin has flex blocks.
Yep.
So it works out perfect.
Actually, I was just thinking with this, my oldest is in, say, 7th grade now, and there have been some discipline challenges too, thinking about like transitioning from that elementary type grading into like real grades and really needing to turn in homework and get grades.
Right.
I almost think like some version of this would actually be great to get into the middle school and help teach them and prepare them even before getting into high school, where it becomes even more important for that too. And it might not need to be the whole thing, even if it is just like, hey, turn in your work and put in your best effort, I think would be like super beneficial for them too. As obviously you're still working out now in the high school, but the kind of a future dynamic.
No, absolutely. And one of the biggest things that, to be honest, as much as I, open forum here, as much as I love the program, I think the biggest impact that has actually came out of me in 30, the challenges are great, but the weekly improvement sessions though are really what's driving these kids' improvement. I think it's having someone who comes in, well, we have 2 people per flex block, that comes in, really cares about them and really wants them to succeed. That's what I think is having the biggest impact. Is that, at least in my flex block, shamelessly, I'm telling them, and the girl who's with me too, we're telling them, you can be anything you want to be. And it's like, yes, you. And it's like some kids, luckily I've come from such a good family where I get to hear stuff like that. But that's not the case in every home, and it's like, for them to hear that, some kids, like, they're just like it's the first time they've heard that since grade school. And that's something I think really has to change. And SEL is great for what it's trying to do. But I think me and 30 kind of meets that, because each week on all of the different sessions, built in each week, there's activities and different things that just reinforces every single week that you can be who you want to be, that you're in control, And I think that's what's had the greatest impact. And you see that in ROTC too, is that is really what drives it. Our freshman year, we were able to be with a platoon commander, and luckily I'm a platoon commander in ROTC, and I see it with those students, how much growth they've had just for having one safe space. It's like they get to come in and have a safe space. And it's like they can be who they want to be, they can laugh, they can joke around, they can improve themselves. And I think that's really what's driving the most improvement right now. The challenges are great. I think that's great. And a lot of, for those more ambitious, maybe for those students who get told that they can do anything, maybe they're ready for something like that. That's the next step of really building discipline. But right now, with a lot of those kids, like that student Ash, it was that really hit her. Like, oh, maybe I actually can't do anything, and I think that's something that me and 30 in the future will definitely look to lean into. And this has been just the greatest learning experience for not only like the company or whatever, but like for just myself, being someone who honestly has been privileged, seeing how a lot of these students live. And it's like, that's just been great for me. Any other?
Anybody else?
No, what you're talking about a lot of things, and I think about, Jason, you and I go back to a point where they started advisories, and and we would run advisories, which was like once a month, and it was a group of kids that would come in and weren't related to you, and the idea was develop a relationship with them. But if you had a group of freshmen and somebody from the Link crew came in, suddenly the attention that they got was a lot greater than the attention I got. And it was the fact that senior or that junior could sit down and talk to them at their level. And here was someone that wasn't that far disconnected to them.
Exactly.
That was talking about stuff. The key thing that I think is that in my opinion, freshmen and sophomores, if they're going to get themselves into academic trouble or otherwise, it's usually like in sophomore year, it seems to me anyway, that they're suddenly realizing that it's crunch time, junior year, senior year, what am I going to do with my life kind of thing. And if between the Link crew in freshman year and this in sophomore year, keeping the kids focused in on what they need to do today, to put stuff in the bank for tomorrow, that's a great thing. And I really compliment you. I think you're doing a great job with this. Thank you.
Okay, I have a few comments. You asked, what's he going to do with this? He wants to make this into an ongoing, viable, living kind of thing that will go on and expand. Now, I don't think he's ambitious enough. He said, I don't know whether it's New England or Northeast. Whole country, as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's what he asked from a business standpoint. What were some suggestions and ideas and hurdles and that sort of thing? Second comment, and this goes back to what you were saying about the kids and working with each other and the growth and so forth, what they could do. Alice Seagren was the Commissioner of Education in Minnesota. She was on a trip to Japan and China. And she said, they were asking me, they said, kids committing suicide was a problem. And we're trying to teach entrepreneurship and leadership. And how do you do that? How do you teach it? See, I don't think we do necessarily, but what we do is we allow it. It's a possibility. Look what he's doing. So he may have the start of a company here. You hope so. But to expand this, to work on it, to think it through, which probably is the most beneficial of all, thinking it through. What is it? What's the goal? What are the steps? What do I need to do? How do I accomplish them? Who do I need to see? What do I do after that? All those sorts of things. I think that's terrific. You don't learn that from a teacher standing in front of a classroom saying, read this book, listen to my talk to you or whatever. That was the second. And the third thing, I noticed you gave your presentation and not until the last time when you were answering questions and this happened. There wasn't no, no, and no like, which drives me nuts. So very well done.
Thank you, sir.
So, oh, sorry.
Just one more point. So make sure that after you have your first run through, that whoever sits down, whether it's you and the group or you have an advisor, make sure you're very honest in your lessons learned for the next step. Lessons learned, you sit here and think, oh yeah, sure, we're going to do that. But you never know that. You know, your friend may have done something that whatever part he or she may have had, and maybe it didn't work that well, but you sort of feel, gee, I don't want them to feel bad type thing. That's what I say by being honest. Everybody involved just needs to be honest. It's not like you're trying to dime somebody like, oh, this didn't work well, or you didn't support your group, blah, blah, blah. You just need to have an honest assessment from everybody so that the next step you take, you know, hopefully you're improving based upon what everybody's assessment.
I think my favorite way of doing that is start, stop, continue. So you have a positive discussion on top of that too.
Mhm.
So you forget what went well, what didn't go well at the same time.
Oh, right.
Luke, can you talk about how many years you've been working on this?
Freshman, so it's like full.
So I want you to know that this is not Luke's first iteration. So he started as a freshman with this crazy, ambitious, awesome take on this program. And you had student leaders from multiple grade levels that you tried to kick it off with. I think it was all of high school.
All of high school.
All of high school. And so they tried some things. Luke reflected. He's kind of been through this process, and it's what's gotten him to sort of this more refined version of Me in 30. You've also shared this at a pitch. Am I right?
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, over the summer, is anyone familiar with the company Fetch? Scan receipts. So, yeah, I pitched it for Fetch. It was totally online. And I think I made it to the semifinals. It was pretty selective, and I think there were like 12,000 applicants. So that was good. I did it as a startup. That was it's like startup incubator they call it or something. So no, it was great. That was an awesome experience. What I did kind of realize though is that talking to you guys, people who are in education is 10 times Misty Moraes, Jessica Martin. You guys have just been, can't thank you enough. I'm serious. And, just hearing from you guys who are actually in it, surrounded by kids. Someone had told me just, honestly, that wasn't the best experience compared to coming here talking to you guys. This is honestly much better because you guys know what you're talking about. Like, I got some bad advice and went down to bad and like, oh, this is not correct. By someone who works in corporate, so like, what do they really know? I should have figured that, what are you gonna do?
But another point is, you told me your original ideas came because you talked to our superintendent. And she gave you a book to read. Well, this is
Ask me for a book, I'll give you one.
No, but this is a good example of what I was talking about, where we don't teach a student to do business. But we give them some support and allow them to go ahead. There is the room, there is the opportunity, that sort of thing. So that's the kind of stuff that my friend Alice Segrin was talking to the people in Japan and China about. You will be an entrepreneur, you will. Doesn't happen that way. He's one of the founders of DECA, our business, when he was a sophomore. He said, would I come in and talk to them? And I did. He and you had two friends there?
Yes, Riley Morin and Landon Stratas, both seniors that year.
Oh, there was the guy who was on the school committee last year, a white.
Nick.
Nick.
I don't think he was in DECA, but.
No.
Certainly was.
Because I found out about DECA under the stairs at a basketball game when he was there doing what you were doing last Friday of,
He might have been that junior year. I think he was actually.
yeah. Yep. So anyway, thank you for coming in. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so much.
Good job.
No, really, thank you guys so much. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.
Only when I poured out for Dr. Allen, he either or no?
Will Luke be there? We can ask him to
I mean,
come
I
if you
don't
want him to. He's not scheduled to come.
Okay, all right, so just,
We can share his PowerPoint and,
okay, good.
Isn't that impressive?
has anyone, I'm just curious, anyone online done the Hard 75 Challenge? Has anyone ever heard of that? It was like a Facebook craze several years ago, and you had to exercise a certain number of minutes a day. You had to read each night, do something kind, all these different things. And the whole premise of it is that you start to believe you can, right? And so it's like you can do hard things. That's the whole premise of the book. And so I don't even know what Luke and I were talking about one day randomly, but he's like on this idea, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this book for you to read, but read it carefully and let your mom look it over, because it was written by 27-year-old guy with some words that probably weren't, something a superintendent would give to a kid, right? But the premise of the book is really amazing, that if you can work through these challenges, then and you start to learn that you can do hard things, which is really what we need our kids to build that resilience. So it's not like you don't fail if you do it 5 days and you miss one, right? You're learning all along the way that you can do these hard things to get you through. So I'm really proud of what he's transformed it into. And I'm sure Jason, I'll look up there, because I remember when Luke first pitched his idea, it was he wanted to do it all. And so he's really refined his vision down. I just sent him a thing from MIT to see if he wants to think about pitching his idea there. When he pitched it to Fetch, what they told him was this couldn't make money. So they really weren't interested. I don't actually think that's true. I think you could probably create an app and do some different things, but he's really, really passionate about this, and he feels that he is meant to do this for students, and that this is the area where our kids sort of need the most help. and,
he
and
asked-
building that confidence and that resilience.
He asked me, should he do this rather than go to
Yeah.
college?
Yep.
Which I told him no. No.
It'll come. It'll come.
Yeah.
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 So Dick, to jump off your entrepreneurial wagon there just for a second, just anecdotally. So before Christmas time, a number of places had their Christmas bazaars or whatever you call them. There was one at Stone Cow. So we went to that one. We've gone to a few, and this was all outside. And chatting with somebody who had a dog, similar to my dog, blah, 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 chat, turned out to be a middle school teacher in our school district. So we were chatting for a bit. And then she said, oh, come over here. So she brought me to one of the stands, and there was an eighth grader, one of our eighth graders, and his mom. And he was selling these little three-dimensional, I'm not sure, I don't even know what to call them. It was sort of like, they were more than trinkets. They were something like you could put in a Christmas stocking or something like that. And so chatting with them, he took a computer course with Mr. Z. And I don't know if the course itself was on three-dimensional
3D printing. Mhm.
whether there was part of the course that was three-dimensional. But anyway, he was so enamored by what he learned in Mr. Z's class that he spent last summer going through trying to figure out how to make these creations. And his mom said he spent months doing it, and that this is what he did now. So he set up, this wasn't the only Christmas bazaar that he set himself up, a holiday bazaar, but he set up with the stand and he had all the things out there. And so speaking of being an entrepreneur, so here he is, not only he's creating this stuff, then he's got to do all his, his cost-effective stuff, how many hours do I put in? Where's the process? I'm sure he wasn't, comparing hours to how much I can make, because this was just something, the way his mom said it, because his mom was there with him, that just was like, he was just determined to do this. This is stuff we never see. Not only don't we see, the teachers, administrators, we have kids, I'm sure. I mean, unless you have a kid that has gone through and is still, buddies with his friends, and you hear, oh, Jake's doing this or Sue's doing that or whatever, you're thinking, oh, that's great. We don't find out what our kids do. I mean, here's a kid who's an eighth grader and talking about being an entrepreneur. There he's out there, right there, doing his own thing instead of, hanging around and maybe playing soccer or basketball in the summertime, or just, being on his computer all day. But he was being creative. And how many kids do we have that do this? We just don't know. But it's just so great to see and find out about the kids that do it. And we say, you know what, this whole thing was set up, they ran with it. And I like to think that a lot of our kids, a lot more than we know, pick something up and run with it. Unfortunately, we'll never know about it.
I think that's
the
true.
sad thing. We'll never know about some of this.
I know Mr. Gilmartin buys cupcakes from one of our students who has a cupcake business. So we have others, but that's where he gets all his cupcakes, right, Mr. Gilmartin? Yeah.
Well, that's
Too many
one of the
cupcakes.
That's one of the reasons I wanted him on this panel out by the Policy Center at UMass, because he's going to be interacting with one of the top 50 educational researchers in the country, for Christ's sakes. And that's the kind of person a kid like this should get to know. The dean of the School of Ed will be there. The chancellor probably will be there. He should get to know who these people are. He was asking, I said, well, go talk to Colleen, go talk to Maureen. Have them introduce him to other superintendents to find out what it would take to get it up and running in their district. How would they finance it? Would they allow the time? Would they, et cetera, put together some packets of materials to teach each of these segments? I mean, just the basic kind of stuff. But he's like a sponge.
Mhm.
He's like a sponge on steroids. He just, but you're right. We have kids like that. In the music department, in the sports department, in the art department, in the theater department, in the various academic departments, in business. That's one of the reasons I like our school district so much. I don't think every district would have this. Okay, your turn.
Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is the competency determination. So we have always had graduation requirements. And then on top of that, there's an extra component for a competency determination to earn your high school diploma. So it's really in addition. I talked about this at one of the school committee meetings that I had attended a session with Secretary Tutwiler. And I felt pretty confident that moving forward, what the state was going to recommend, because he talked about it on that day, is that all high schools across the state of Massachusetts follow the Mass Core requirements for graduation, which is exactly what we have. Also, if you heard the governor's State of the Commonwealth address, she talked about this herself. So she talked about forming a commission to work on the competency determination. So I just want to sort of premise that what we have here will not be a standalone policy. It will go into our middle high school handbook, which is where competency determination lived before. I would anticipate that maybe a year from now, maybe sooner, that the state is going to come out with another version of what competency determination is. So the middle high school team, I gathered up a lot of resources from other districts and the way that people thought they were going to sort of approach the competency determination. I asked the middle high school administrators to look through them and put through, in a way, a couple different options based on how our students have performed over the years. So one of the first things that they looked at was they wanted to make sure that if our kids were already engaged in the Mass Core sort of lineup, the idea of MCAS is that it measures students' competency determination as 10th graders, that they would be able to show competency on 10th grade standards. It's assessed in English, math, and the sciences. So they ran some reports to see passing. So the students who pass 10th grade in those courses, are they also the students who are able to pass MCAS, or was there some sort of discrepancy? Was our passing rate sort of a low bar and MCAS was more challenging for them, or was it in the other direction? And I think what they found is that actually it was a very close match. So therefore, we feel good about saying option 2 is really this idea that students have to show competency in the equivalent of our 10th grade English, our 10th grade math, and any one of the sciences. It could be biology, physics, chemistry, or engineering, and that they would need to show this by the time they graduate. And if they did, then they would receive their diploma. So basically, part of this is because we do Mass Core already. We would know that if our students pass these courses, that then they would earn their competency determination, they fulfilled their graduation requirements, and they could have a diploma. So that is option 2. Option 1, we decided to leave in there. And I think for 2 reasons, but Purnima and Jason, you guys and Jill can jump in on this. But what we found was some of our students who maybe don't take a traditional pathway of the standard English is math, science, so on and so forth. Maybe they're students who might be in our life skills program and they get their curriculum over time. So they might have math with their life skills teacher as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a junior, as a senior, but it sort of goes over time, right? So we said we would hang on to, as an option, the MCAS as competency determination. Many of those students who have taken those courses have been able to reach their competency determination by taking the MCAS. MCAS, contrary to, everyone's belief and wish and whatever, is not actually going away. We still will administer MCAS. So we thought in the short term, because this impacts all of our class of 2025 students, that we would hang on to MCAS as one option for competency determination. I don't know if anyone, Purnima, Jill, Jason, you guys want to add anything to that?
I think you really captured it well, Colleen. The advantage to also holding on to the MCAS is oftentimes we've seen the appeal process work for a lot of our students. So with whether special needs or regular ed, we do submit cohort appeals to DESE often, and that is a way to support students who may have a different trajectory, take different classes and courses in different grades. We found that their grade work, when shown off in the appeal, that also supports that piece. So option one would not only be the traditional MCAS, it would also include the cohort appeal and any other measures that DESE does provide to support students. So keeping that intact, I think, would be really important to keep that inclusive profile for kids going. And then option two, we teach the standards, as Colleen said, and so that would be measurable through our subject area courses. So for now, until things morph again in the world of education, we feel like those two pieces are quite solid to contribute to a student's success.
Okay, so that's for high school graduation. What's Trish going to talk to us about? What's Carlson going to talk to us about for fourth grade? Now, I know they don't have eighth grade, of course, but for in their schools.
Nothing has changed
Still
for
have it?
elementary schools. Yep, we all will still be administering MCAS. We have all our dates booked out in our calendars, as a matter of fact. And so that will still run the same way. Actually, the administration of MCAS has not gone away. It's all going to work the same way. There was a lot of conversation earlier in the year really about, well, should we administer the retests? And we said, as long as we're offering it, we're still going to do it. So there are some benefits. Students could possibly qualify for John and Abigail Adams scholarships. It's also one of the reasons, we left it in here, that we'll still have the opportunities to do that. But nothing changes at the elementary level.
So you can then tell us how good your kids are doing.
That
how
they
they're gonna be
can.
Doing even better.
Yep, that's true.
See, we have the 4 elementary principals. Thank you for all being here tonight.
Go ahead, Deb.
What type of? Will parents have any justification to refuse their child to take the test, since it's not a requirement, with sometimes people don't quite understand, so.
Yes.
Worried about pushback, and what if there's a lot of absenteeism or?
I think that there is no, Trisha got an email, I think a couple weeks ago, right? There actually is no opt out of MCAS. And I think that's, again, something that's been kind of falsely put out there. If your child doesn't come to school, obviously they don't have to participate that day, right? Are we going to chase them down to make sure they make it up? A parent doesn't want them to take MCAS, probably not. But that's been sort of a misnomer, if you will, for a while. Parents actually can't opt their kids out of MCAS. So, here's the thing. I think that all of our principals do a really good job of balancing sort of the assessment, and this is just how we do school, right? And so if we do school and we're teaching our kids and we're teaching them to the standards, they're going to be successful on MCAS, and there's nothing to fear, right? So I think you might be surprised by the participation rates that we actually do have. Do we think they could go down? They absolutely could. And if they go down, they're not just going to go down in Quabbin, they're going to go down across the state. And I think then you'll start to see some changes. But in the short term, we're treating it as we always have. It gives us good information. And so we try and share that with parents and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, one of the things that I always look forward to is hearing how your schools are doing. Where the strengths are, weaknesses, and what you're doing about it. And you're always doing something because you're good principals and you're good building administrators and you stay on top of things and you care. That's what people in this district do, so. Yeah.
So a couple of questions, Colleen.
Sure.
If I pass MCAS,
Yep,
it was option one,
Mhm.
I still really have to pass option two, right?
you do.
Okay, so it's not really a two options. It's two elements that must be passed.
Yes.
Fail MCAS, it's not a graduation requirement, but as long as I pass all the coursework acceptably, then I graduate.
Yeah.
Do we understand it?
Yes, that is true. But what it does is, for the students who take more time to get through their academic courses and get to that 10th grade. So what we don't want to happen is to have these high failure rates where kids are constantly having to repeat to get this competency determination, right? So it allows for a little bit more time to get the courses under their belt and the standards under their belt, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah, no, I understand all that. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I see options, I want to make sure I understand what options mean. So under option two,
Mhm.
essentially, we still have to, we're putting a lot of nice language in to say, you're looking at the handbook and you still need to get D or D plus or whatever in 4 years of English, 4 years of math, et cetera, right? We're not changing any of that.
We are not,
Okay,
right. Our graduation requirements stand.
right.
Yes.
4 years of English, 4 years of math, 3 of social studies and 3 of science. And once upon a time, when we put that policy in, 11% of our kids were doing those things.
We're doing what?
The 4, 4, 3, 3. 11% of our kids. We're taking.
Passing it?
No, we're taking those courses.
Oh, I see.
In 4 years of English, we had something like 56, 57%. When we put those, we frequently are well ahead of the state in our requirements.
As well, we should.
Yeah, well, we should be, yes. Any other comments or questions?
I have a question on option 2, the last bullet point, the passing grade of ST MCAS testing, including algebra, physics, chemistry, or engineering courses. That basically just like
Can be in any one of those.
any one of those classes.
Yes, because when students take their science MCAS, they have a choice of, we usually match them to the class that they're most recently enrolled in, but they can take that MCAS in any of those
So,
areas.
yeah, so is that still then using the MCAS score for that?
Nope.
course, or is it using a course?
Course, yep.
Is it listed at MCAS testing?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
I move that we accept the QRSD competency determination proposal options 1 and 2 and certificate of attainment.
Second, please second. All in favor? Okay, is everybody? All right, I think that takes care of it for tonight and this year
Gonna say.
until October. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now adjourn.